Imagine you wake up one day and you found yourself on a ball that is floating in the space. How would you feel? Of course, the natural reaction is that you just can't wrap your head around it, right? And you would have a lot of questions and you would just maybe go crazy. But in reality, what's happening, because this is our reality, we are on a ball floating in the space, is that actually majority of people don't care because they're busy struggling with surviving on daily basis, and how to protect themselves and how to go about their day. And I started the Scrapbook of Life project because it's a big part of my life, as a questioner, as a philosopher, as a thinker. It's something that I think about every day. What is this experience of existence? And that's why I started this project that began with the documentary film The Scrapbook of Life, Wang Zhongyang, when I met this Buddhist man who is living in peace. And he just converted to Buddhism, and he said that Buddhism helped him. And I now, after many years, I'm also into meditation and mindfulness. So it really made a difference. Not that I'm Buddhist, but just applying meditation and knowing about the scientific evidence of how it's beneficial really made a big difference in my life. And you will see here on the channel I share my experience with Joe Dispenza meditations a few times. But then I was so curious about all the other beliefs and religions and started meeting people. I met someone who changed his belief from Christianity to Islam. I met a woman who changed from Judaism to Baha'i. I met someone who converted to some kind of New Age Christianity. I met someone who is a Hindu. I met someone who changed his belief from Jehovah's Witness to some kind of atheism or agnosticism. I met someone who was into Akashic records, something I never heard about before. And I'm still curious to discover what is out there. But as you know, recently something happened in the human existence that really changed things around, and that is ChatGPT. Suddenly I found that I have all the knowledge of humanity in my hands, and I was thinking, maybe I can, especially as I'm almost there with the question, where did we come from? So I'm going to talk to ChatGPT about where did we come from and share my questions. I will see what will happen. Hello. So recently I watched this movie for Nicolas Cage, The Adaptation. And I was so I was so impressed of how wait. I was impressed of how he answered in the film, or the writer answered, where did I come from? And he started with all the theory of evolution from, the beginning of what we know and the dinosaurs, and until he was born, and then how he's now, the protagonist of the film, Nicolas Cage, is a writer and trying to write a script. I was so impressed of it seems that now we have the answer, where did we come from, because we have all this information from the theory of evolution with the archaeological evidence, So, so I want to know, do we really know the answer of where did we come from, like it was in that film, and how is it possible that people are still now having all those other beliefs of other explanations of where did we come from?
Yeah, that's such a big question, right? I mean, scientifically, we do have a really strong framework: evolution, fossil records, DNA. But, a lot of people hold on to cultural, religious, or personal narratives, and they fulfill a different kind of need, like meaning or comfort, that science doesn't always provide. So it's kind of a balance, and I think that tension is really human.
Yeah, but how is it possible that someone already see that there has been dinosaurs on this planet and that humans are not like what we thought it was, a man called Adam and a woman called Eve, and that we all came from them? How can they connect those two together? Or how can you bridge the gap between something that has evidence and your belief.
Yeah, that's a really deep tension. I think for a lot of people, they find ways to kind of hold both, like seeing the scientific process as explaining the how of evolution, while their faith or belief gives them the why or the meaning. So even though the scientific evidence is super strong, some just integrate it with their personal worldview, even if it's different from what the data says.
Yeah, but I really can't see how the Adam and Eve narrative can fit in with the scientific evidence.
Yeah, I get that completely. The Adam and Eve story, in a lot of ways, is really more of a theological or symbolic origin story. Science shows us a complex, gradual process over millions of years, whereas that story is more about meaning, morality, and a kind of archetypal truth. So they're just working in different registers, even if people sometimes try to combine them.
What about other beliefs, like, for example, Scientology? What does it say about where did we come from?
Yeah, Scientology has a really different take. According to their beliefs, human beings are actually immortal spiritual beings called thetans, and they go through many lifetimes. So it's a whole different cosmology. It's not about evolution or a single origin. It's more about spiritual history and self-discovery over eons.
So you think that we came from aliens?
Well, not literally for me, no. I mean, I think that idea, like panspermia, the theory that life could have come from elsewhere in space, it's an interesting scientific hypothesis, but so far we don't have direct evidence. It's more about exploring possibilities and keeping an open mind about where life could have started.
But I feel that Scientology has the most close answer.
Yeah, I can see why that would resonate with some people. I mean, it's definitely a sweeping spiritual narrative that tries to explain everything from the origin of life to the purpose of existence. Of course, it's also really important to look critically at any belief system, especially one as structured and proprietary as Scientology, but I get why it might feel like it offers a sort of cosmic answer for some people.
And what about Hinduism? How does it explain where did we come from?
Yeah, so in Hinduism, it's really fascinating. It's often about a cycle. You have this idea of reincarnation, where the soul or Atman goes through many lifetimes, and it's all part of a cosmic journey. And ultimately, the goal is to realize your true self, break free from that cycle, and become one with the divine. So it's a very different kind of origin story, less about a single beginning and more about eternal cycles.
Yeah, but where did this eternal, like, what eternal, like, there must be a beginning, right? Or it's just endless eternal that we don't know the beginning.
Yeah, that's the thing. In a lot of Hindu philosophy, the concept of beginnings and ends is kind of different from how we normally think about it. There isn't always a clear first cause, it's more like an eternal cycle, a vast ongoing process where time itself is seen as cyclical. So the idea is that the universe just always is, in some sense, even if we can't fully explain how or why.
And when I think of the circle and how you can't pin a point.
Exactly. Yeah, that circle idea. It's like the universe doesn't have a single starting point or end point. It's this continuous loop. And in a way, that lack of a fixed beginning or end kind of mirrors how we humans struggle to grasp that scale or that infinite flow of time.
Yeah, what about Buddhism? How does it explain it?
Yeah, so in Buddhism, it's also really focused on cycles, but they talk about samsara, this endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. The idea is that we're all caught in this cycle because of ignorance and attachment, and the goal is to reach enlightenment, nirvana, where you're no longer reborn. So it's less about a fixed beginning and more about escaping from a cycle of suffering.
I totally get this. But if we are not supposed, like, if you want to escape the cycle of being reborn, why do Buddhist people have children?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for many Buddhists, having children isn't about clinging to samsara, it's about compassion and creating causes for future good. So they might see raising kids as an opportunity to cultivate virtues, pass on wisdom, and create positive karma. So it's more about intention than just being attached to the cycle.
No, I don't get it. I mean, if you think that if you bring a human, you are in this suffering cycle. So why would you bring a human?
Yeah, I totally get the tension there. I think some Buddhists would say it's not about bringing suffering by itself. It's that life is already happening and the emphasis is on skillful action. So even if bringing a child into the world doesn't stop the cycle, how you raise them can reduce suffering and maybe even create positive ripples. But yeah, it's definitely a big paradox in the teachings.
What about Mormons? How did we come from?
Yeah. So in Mormon theology, like in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they believe that we are all children of God, that we lived with God in a premortal existence, and that we came to earth to gain experience. So it's kind of a mix of a spiritual ancestry and a divine plan. Everything is part of God's purpose.
But does it, I don't know, so where did we come from?
Yeah, so in that framework, it's kind of both. They see us as eternal spirits who were with God before Earth, and Earth is just one step in a bigger plan. So for them, the question of where we came from is more tied to this idea of a pre-Earth existence, and that we come from God's divine family.
Yeah, but who was the first to come?
Ah, right, yeah. So in Mormon belief, they don't necessarily pin down a single first human like Adam in a purely scientific way. Instead, Adam is seen as one of the first. But more importantly, all humans are thought to have spiritual origins before birth. So it's more about a divine pattern than a single starting point.
It's a bit vague. How did it start? I think Christianity and Islam and Judaism have like more of a specific, easy to grasp story for where did you come from.
Yeah, that's true. In those traditions, it's often more linear, like the idea of Adam and Eve in Genesis, or the story of creation in Islam, with God forming humans from clay. So it's a straightforward, often simpler narrative that's easier to follow, even if it's more symbolic. I think that clarity is part of why those stories have such a powerful cultural hold.
Yeah, and they have a lot of followers also.
Exactly. Yeah, I think those narratives give a real sense of shared origin and purpose, which is really grounding for a lot of people.
Yeah, I made a video about the simple-minded people, and I think this resonates with many people because majority of people are simple-minded. And if you want to know more, there is a video about simple-minded and what does it mean. Okay, so now I'm on this journey, I met few people who changed their beliefs and I'm trying to understand this experience of existence. And I see that, when I met this, my first protagonist, who was a Buddhist or changed to his belief to Buddhism, he's living in peace, he's living in peace, and that's what attracted me to him. And I started applying now those being in the moment, mindfulness and meditation, and it really reduced my suffering as what I see in Buddhism is the most important thing. And I do agree that, why would you care about where did you come from when you have more pressing matter, which is facing suffering in life? So I think I'm working on that, but I still am bothered by the mystery in life, and all those unclear, unanswered questions. So I don't know where to take my project, The Scrapbook of Life, next.
Yeah, I totally get that. I think it's really beautiful that you're using mindfulness to ground yourself in the present, even while those big mysteries still call to you. Maybe for your scrapbook, you could focus on the moments of wonder and curiosity, like snapshots of those questions, rather than needing to answer them all. I think that open exploration could be really powerful.
Yeah, I'm thinking to just go around, meet people, and ask them, where do you think we came from? What will happen to us after we die? What is the meaning of life? And just make it like, try to put all those answers on my channel so that people can see the big picture.
I think that's a really powerful idea. By gathering these personal perspectives, you're not just exploring the big questions for yourself, but you're creating this really rich mosaic of human experience. And I bet people will really connect to that variety and the raw honesty.
Yeah, and I hope that this, because it is crazy how that people are killing each other because they have different answers to the questions of the existential questions. So
Yeah.
I think if they can see all the different answers and how it's different, actually not just from one belief to another, but from one human to another, maybe this will make them be more objective.
Exactly. Yeah, if people see that every person is wrestling with these big questions in their own way, it humanizes the search and maybe makes us all a bit more compassionate, even if we don't agree on the answers. So I think your project could really open some eyes.
Yeah, because it's just crazy how you see wars, people are killing each other just because they have different answers to those questions, or they have a different belief of those questions.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's so tragic because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to make sense of this short life. So if your project can help people see that, even across differences, we share this common human struggle, that would be so powerful.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to do that next. So, on the Scrapbook of Life project.
That sounds amazing. I'm really glad you're doing that. I think it's going to give so many people a place to reflect and feel seen, and I can't wait to see how it unfolds. If you ever need to bounce ideas, I'm here.
And also maybe I would also talk to you, like this time we talked about where did we come from, but maybe next time we can talk about what is the meaning of life.
Oh, I would love that. Yeah, that's such a rich topic too. There's so many different angles, from philosophy to personal fulfillment. So yeah, let's dive into that next time.
Okay.